The silence in Vincent's penthouse cuts deeper than any scream. 23 floors above the city, where neon bleeds through bulletproof glass, he sits motionless at his mahogany desk. The grandfather clock ticks, each second measured, controlled, like everything else in his world. Vincent Torino built his empire on calculated moves and swift eliminations. At 42, his reputation precedes him through every dark corner of the city. They call him the Ghost because when Vincent decides someone disappears, they vanish without trace. No bodies, no witnesses, just empty spaces where people used to exist. But tonight, the emptiness feels different. It lives inside him. His reflection stares back from the black window. Gray suit, perfectly pressed. Hands that have never trembled, not even when signing death warrants. Eyes that reveal nothing. The same face that has terrified judges, politicians, and rival families for 20 years. Yet in this moment, alone with his empire spread below like fallen stars, Vincent sees something else in that reflection. Something he refuses to name. The intercom buzzes. His lieutenant's voice cuts through the silence. "Boss, the Castellano situation is handled. Clean. No complications." Vincent doesn't respond immediately. He lets the silence stretch, knowing it makes men uncomfortable. Fear keeps them loyal. "Good," he finally says. His voice carries the weight of absolute authority. "Anything else?" "No, sir. All quiet tonight." Vincent disconnects without another word. All quiet. The phrase echoes in his mind. His entire life has been built on making sure things stay quiet. Permanently quiet. He stands and walks to the wall safe hidden behind a Picasso worth more than most people's homes. The combination turns under his fingers with practiced precision. Inside, among the cash and documents that could topple governments, sits a single photograph. Faded, worn at the edges from handling. A woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Maria, his wife. Dead 7 years now. Cancer took her slowly, methodically. The one enemy his money and power couldn't intimidate or eliminate. He'd offered hospitals millions, threatened the best doctors, but death doesn't negotiate with mafia bosses. Vincent slides the photo back into the safe and seals it away. Some wounds never heal, they just learn to hide better. The elevator descends to the parking garage where his armored Mercedes waits. Giuseppe, his driver for 15 years, knows better than to ask where they're going when Vincent drives these late-night routes alone. The engine purrs to life. A sound as smooth and deadly as Vincent himself. He drives through the city's underbelly, past territories he controls through fear and respect, past the docks where bodies have disappeared beneath black water, past the clubs where his money flows like blood through the city's veins. But tonight, something pulls him toward the forgotten corners, the places where his empire's light doesn't reach. The industrial district sleeps in shadows. Warehouses stand like concrete tombstones against the night sky. This is where the city shows its true face, stripped of pretense and lies. Here among the ruins of abandoned dreams, the desperate come to disappear. Vincent parks the Mercedes in an alley between two crumbling buildings. He's not sure why he's here. Instinct, maybe. Or something deeper that he doesn't want to examine. The silence feels different here. Not controlled. Not safe. Raw. A sound breaks the quiet. Faint, but urgent. Coming from the narrow space between a shuttered grocery store and a boarded-up apartment building. Vincent's hand moves instinctively to the Glock tucked beneath his jacket. 20 years of survival have taught him that unexpected sounds in dark places usually mean trouble. But this sound is different. Not threatening. Desperate. He moves toward it with the careful precision of a predator. Each step calculated. Silent. The narrow alley opens into a small courtyard behind the grocery store, where dumpsters overflow with the city's forgotten refuse. Broken glass catches what little light filters down from distant street lamps. And there, crouched beside a pile of garbage bags, he sees her. A young woman, maybe 25, kneeling in the filth. Her clothes hang in tatters, more holes than fabric. Dark hair matted with dirt and rain, bare feet bleeding from the broken glass. She tears through garbage with desperate fingers, searching for something edible among the rot. Vincent freezes. In all his years of violence and control, he's seen every kind of human misery. He's caused most of it, but something about this scene strikes him differently. The way she moves with careful desperation, trying to separate food from waste. The quiet dignity she maintains even in degradation. She finds a half-eaten sandwich and examines it under the dim light. Mold spots the bread, but she carefully picks them away, salvaging what she can. Her hands shake not from fear but from hunger that has become her constant companion. Vincent should leave. This isn't his world anymore. He deals in power and fear, not in the pathetic struggles of the forgotten, but something keeps him rooted in the shadows. Watching this woman fight for survival with the same intensity he once brought to building his empire. She looks up suddenly, sensing his presence. Their eyes meet across 20 feet of garbage and shadow. She doesn't scream, doesn't run, just stares at him with eyes that have seen too much to be surprised by anything anymore. In that moment, Vincent sees something he hasn't encountered in years. Someone who isn't afraid of him. The silence stretches between them like a held breath. Vincent steps forward, his Italian leather shoes crunching on broken glass. Each step deliberate, measured. The woman doesn't retreat. She watches him with the stillness of someone who has learned that sudden movements attract the wrong kind of attention. "You're in my territory," Vincent says. His voice carries the authority of 20 years commanding fear, but something in her gaze makes the words feel hollow. She tilts her head slightly, studying him with curious intensity. "Your territory?" Her voice is hoarse from thirst but steady. "I don't see your name on the garbage." Vincent's jaw tightens. Men have died for less disrespect, but there's no challenge in her tone, just exhausted honesty. She returns to examining the sandwich, picking away mold with careful precision, as if he's already forgotten, as if the most feared man in the city is just another shadow in her peripheral vision. "What's your name?" The question surprises him as much as her. She glances up. "Does it matter?" "It does to me." Something shifts in her expression. Not fear, but recognition, as if she's seeing him clearly for the first time. "Elena." Vincent nods. Elena. The name carries weight he doesn't understand yet. "When did you last eat something real?" She considers the question seriously. "Tuesday, I think. A man at the shelter gave me half a burrito before they ran out of space." She pauses. "What day is it now?" "Friday." Elena processes this information without emotion. 3 days. Vincent has killed men for smaller offenses than making him wait 3 minutes. But watching this woman count days since her last meal awakens something unfamiliar in his chest. Something that feels dangerously close to conscience. "Wait here," he says. It's not a request. Elena looks at him with weary amusement. "Where exactly would I go?" Vincent walks back to his Mercedes, his mind racing. This is insanity. He should drive away and forget this encounter. Elena is not his problem. The desperate and forgotten belong to a world he left behind when he chose power over compassion. But his hands move independently of his thoughts, opening the glove compartment where he keeps emergency cash. $500 in crisp bills. Enough to solve Elena's immediate problems. Enough to ease whatever strange guilt is clawing at his chest. He can hand her the money, drive away, and return to his controlled world where suffering happens at a distance he chooses to maintain. But instead he finds himself calling Giuseppe. "I need you to bring food. Real food. To the alley behind Marco's grocery on Industrial." Vincent's voice is steady, but his lieutenant's surprise crackles through the phone. "Boss, is everything okay?" "Just do it, no questions." "What kind of food?" Vincent looks back toward the alley where Elena waits. Something warm. Something that tastes like home. 30 minutes later, Giuseppe arrives with bags from Nonna's, the Italian restaurant Vincent owns but never visits. The old woman who runs it makes food that could make saints weep. Giuseppe doesn't ask questions, just hands over the bags and disappears back into the night with professional discretion. Vincent returns to find Elena exactly where he left her, still crouched beside the garbage, still examining her moldy sandwich with the same careful attention she might give a precious artifact. She looks up as he approaches, her eyes widening slightly at the bags in his hands. "Hungry?" he asks. Elena stares at the bags as if they might vanish. "Why?" It's a fair question. Vincent doesn't have a good answer. "Because you are." He sets the bags down and steps back. Elena approaches slowly like a stray animal testing for traps. She opens the first container and the smell of real food fills the alley. Chicken parmesan, garlic bread, pasta with sauce that Nonna makes from tomatoes she grows in pots behind the restaurant. Elena's hands shake as she lifts the fork. The first bite stops her cold. She closes her eyes and chews slowly as if trying to memorize the taste. A single tear tracks down her dirt-stained cheek. Vincent watches from the shadows. He's seen men break under torture, But this quiet display of gratitude cuts deeper than any scream. Elena eats with careful dignity, not the desperate hunger he expected. She's still human beneath the desperation, still possesses something he thought poverty destroyed. "You don't have to watch me eat," she says without looking up. "I'm not watching you eat." "Then what are you watching?" Vincent considers the question. "I'm not sure." Elena nods, as if this makes perfect sense. "I haven't been sure about anything in months." They fall into comfortable silence. Vincent leans against the brick wall while Elena eats. The city hums around them, distant and irrelevant. For the first time in years, Vincent isn't thinking about territories or rivals or the next move in his endless chess game of power. He's just watching a woman remember what it feels like to be fed. "You're not what I expected," Elena says finally. "What did you expect?" "Someone worse." She meets his eyes. "Someone who wouldn't bring food to a stranger." Vincent feels something crack inside his chest. "Maybe you bring out my better nature." "Do you have one?" The question should sting. Instead, it makes him smile. A real smile, not the calculated expression he wears in meetings. The jury's still out. Elena finishes eating and carefully packs the remaining food. Vincent notices she saves more than half. For later. For tomorrow. For the uncertainty that defines her existence. "Thank you," she says simply. Vincent nods. Words feel insufficient. He pulls out his wallet and extends the $500. Elena looks at the money but doesn't take it. "What's the catch?" "No catch." "There's always a catch." Vincent studies her face. She's right, of course. In his world, every gift comes with strings attached. Every kindness has a price. But looking at Elena, sitting among garbage with dignity and tact, he realizes he doesn't want anything from her. He just wants her to survive. "Not this time," he says. Elena takes the money with reluctant hands. "Why are you doing this?" Vincent wishes he had an answer that made sense. "I don't know." She studies him with those penetrating eyes. "You're not what you pretend to be. Neither are you." Elena smiles for the first time since he found her. It transforms her face completely, revealing the beauty that hunger and desperation have hidden. Maybe that's why this feels like something more than charity. Vincent feels the crack in his chest widen. What does it feel like? Like recognition. The word hangs between them, loaded with implications Vincent isn't ready to examine. He's built his life on being unknowable, untouchable. But Elena sees through the carefully constructed facade as if it's made of glass. "I should go," he says. Elena nods, but doesn't move. "Will I see you again?" The question surprises them both. Vincent doesn't make personal connections. He has associates, employees, and enemies, nothing in between. But something about Elena makes the boundaries blur. "Probably not," he says, though the words feel like lies. Elena stands and brushes dirt from her tattered clothes. "Then thank you for tonight. For seeing me when the world pretends I don't exist." She disappears into the shadows before Vincent can respond. He stands alone in the alley, surrounded by the debris of urban decay, feeling more unsettled than he has in years. Elena has opened something inside him that he thought sealed permanently when Maria died. Something dangerous. Something that makes him question the carefully ordered world he's built on violence and control. Vincent drives home through empty streets, but the silence in his penthouse feels different now. Less controlled, more honest. Like the space between heartbeats when anything becomes possible. 3 weeks pass like shadows across Vincent's carefully ordered existence. He doesn't return to the alley, doesn't drive through the industrial district, but Elena haunts his thoughts with the persistence of an unsolved problem. In meetings with capos and politicians, her voice echoes in his mind. At night, staring at his city from 23 floors above the suffering, he sees her eyes reflecting back from the bulletproof glass. The Castellano family makes their move on a Tuesday. Predictable, desperate. Vincent watches surveillance footage of their soldiers positioning themselves around his legitimate businesses. Children playing at war while the real strategist observes from the shadows. He could end this with a phone call. 3 bodies in the river by midnight. But something holds him back. Some newfound reluctance to solve problems with permanent solutions. "Boss?" Giuseppe enters the penthouse office without invitation. 20 years of loyalty earns certain privileges. "We have a situation." Vincent doesn't look up from the city sprawl below. "Castellano?" "No, sir. Different kind of situation." Giuseppe's voice carries an edge Vincent has never heard before. "Worry. It's about the girl." The words hit Vincent like ice water. He turned slowly, his expression carefully neutral. What girl? Giuseppe doesn't buy the performance. The one you've been asking me to check on. Quietly. For 3 weeks. Vincent's jaw tightens. He's been too obvious. In his world, obvious means vulnerable. Vulnerable means dead. What about her? She's in the hospital. St. Mary's. Someone worked her over pretty good. The carefully controlled mask slips for exactly 2 seconds. Long enough for Giuseppe to see something that makes him step back involuntarily. Vincent's rage is legendary, but this is different. Personal. Lethal in ways that transcend professional violence. Who? The word comes out like winter wind. Still working on it. But boss. Giuseppe hesitates. Maybe this is a message. For you. Vincent considers this. Elena as bait. Elena as leverage. Elena as a weapon pointed at the only weakness he's shown in 20 years. The calculation makes perfect sense. It's exactly what he would do. Which makes his response utterly predictable. St. Mary's Hospital sits in neutral territory, one of the few places in the city where Vincent's authority means nothing. He walks through sterile corridors with the measured pace of a man attending his own execution. Nurses and doctors sense something dangerous in his presence. They give him space without understanding why. Elena occupies a bed in the charity ward. Her face is swollen beyond recognition. Purple bruises map violence across her features like archipelagos of pain. Both arms are in casts. The monitors beside her bed tick and hum with mechanical indifference. Vincent stands in the doorway, frozen by the sight. In 20 years of orchestrating violence, he's never seen brutality that felt this personal, this directed. Someone didn't just hurt Elena. They crafted her suffering with artistic precision. You came. Her voice is barely a whisper through split lips. Vincent enters the room and closes the door. Who did this? Elena tries to smile but winces instead. Does it matter? It matters to me. 3 men. They knew about you, about the money. She pauses, gathering strength. They wanted to know where you live, what you care about, how to hurt you. Vincent feels something cold and calculating slide into place behind his ribs. Professional interest married to personal fury. What did you tell them? That I didn't know anything. Elena meets his eyes. Because I don't. The simplicity of her answer cuts deeper than any accusation. Elena protected him from questions she couldn't answer about a man she barely knows. She absorbed punishment meant for him without hesitation or complaint. They'll be back, Vincent says. I know. They'll keep hurting you until they get what they want. I know that too. Vincent studies her face, searching for fear or resentment. He finds neither, just acceptance of consequences she never chose. Elena has become collateral damage in a war she didn't start, fighting for a side she never joined. I can protect you, he says. Elena laughs, a sound like broken glass. From men like you? The words hang in the air between them. Elena has identified the central irony of their situation. Vincent's world created the violence that found her. His enemies hurt her to hurt him. His protection comes with the promise of more danger, not less. Yes, he says simply. Elena studies his face with those penetrating eyes. What would that cost me? Vincent appreciates her directness. In his experience, everything costs something. Protection costs freedom. Safety costs independence. Love costs everything you thought you were. Your anonymity. Your ability to disappear. He pauses. Your chance at a normal life. I haven't had a normal life since I was 12. Elena shifts in the hospital bed, wincing at the movement. What are you really offering? Vincent considers his words carefully. A different kind of cage. Prettier bars. Better food. And in return? You let me keep you alive. The honesty of the exchange settles between them like a contract written in blood. No false promises. No romantic delusions. Just 2 people acknowledging the mathematics of survival in a world that trades human lives like currency. The men who did this, Elena says. What will happen to them? Vincent's expression doesn't change, but something in his stillness answers the question more completely than words. Elena nods as if confirming something she already knew. Don't do it because of me, she says. I'm not. Then why? Vincent looks out the hospital window at the city that bends to his will. Because they made it personal. Elena reaches out with her unbroken hand and touches his arm. The contact sends electricity through his carefully controlled composure. What if I said no? What if I walked away right now? Then you'd be dead within a week. And that bothers you. It's not a question. Elena sees through his professional detachment to something more honest underneath. Vincent realizes he's been discovered. The weakness he thought he could contain has become visible to the one person whose opinion somehow matters. Yes, he admits. It bothers me. Elena nods slowly. Then I guess we're both trapped. Vincent feels the weight of decision settling around them like concrete. Elena has seen the choice clearly. Accept his protection and become part of his world, with all the violence and moral compromise that entails. Refuse and die as an innocent casualty of someone else's war. There's a third option, he says. Which is? You disappear. New identity, new city, money to start over somewhere far from here. Elena considers this. You'd let me go? The question reveals how little she understands about the gravity of their situation. Vincent has killed men for knowing less about his business than Elena learned by accident. But looking at her broken face, he realizes he would indeed let her disappear. The revelation surprises him more than her. If that's what you wanted. But you don't think I'd survive anyway? No, they'll keep looking. Men like that don't give up. Elena closes her eyes. When she opens them again, something has hardened in her expression. A decision made in the space between heartbeats. Then I guess I choose the pretty cage. Vincent nods. The contract is sealed without signatures or witnesses. Elena has agreed to let him remake her life in exchange for keeping her alive. It's the most honest relationship he's had in 20 years. What happens now? She asks. Now you heal. Then you learn how to survive in my world. Will you teach me? Vincent looks at this broken woman who somehow sees him more clearly than anyone has since Maria died. Elena represents everything dangerous about caring for another person. She's a liability he can't afford. A weakness his enemies will exploit. A crack in the armor he's spent decades perfecting. Yes, he says. I'll teach you everything. The monitors continue their mechanical rhythm as Vincent settles into the chair beside Elena's bed. Outside, his empire continues its dark business. Inside this sterile room, something new begins to grow between two people who have found unexpected salvation in each other's damage. The story that started with a chance encounter in an alley behind a forgotten grocery store has evolved into something neither of them anticipated. A partnership forged in violence. A connection that defies the careful boundaries Vincent has maintained between his heart and his empire. Are you feeling the tension building as Vincent's world and Elena's survival become increasingly intertwined? The moral complexity deepens when protection requires participating in the very system that creates victims. What do you think about Elena's choice? Was accepting Vincent's protection an act of survival or a surrender to inevitable corruption? Drop your thoughts below because this psychological chess game is just beginning, and every move carries consequences that will reshape both their souls. Elena's recovery takes 6 weeks. Vincent visits every other day, always at different times, never following patterns that enemies could predict. He brings books she never learned to want, food that tastes like hope, and silence that feels safer than any conversation. The hospital staff learn not to ask questions about the man in expensive suits who sits beside the charity case in room 314. Dr. Martinez pulls Vincent aside on a Thursday. She's healing faster than expected, physically. The doctor's eyes carry the weight of unspoken concerns. But trauma like this leaves marks that don't show on X-rays. Vincent studies the medical charts without comprehension. Numbers and terminology that measure damage in clinical terms. None of it captures what he sees in Elena's eyes during visiting hours. The way she flinches at sudden sounds. How she positions herself to see all exits. The careful way she weighs each word before speaking, as if language itself has become dangerous. What are you saying? I'm saying she's going to need more than medical care. She needs stability, safety, time to remember what normal feels like. Dr. Martinez closes the chart. Can you provide that? The question hits Vincent like a physical blow. Normal. The word exists in his vocabulary, but not his experience. His world operates on controlled chaos, calculated violence, and the constant threat of betrayal. Asking him to provide normalcy is like asking fire to create ice. I can provide protection. That's not the same thing. Vincent knows this. Has known it since Elena agreed to accept his help. Protection and safety exist in different universes. Protection is what he offers his business associates. Safety is what Maria used to feel sleeping beside him before the world taught him that love makes everything vulnerable. Elena is discharged on a Tuesday. Vincent arrives with Giuseppe in a black sedan that screams federal surveillance to anyone paying attention. But Elena doesn't hesitate. She slides into the back seat with the careful movements of someone whose bones remember recent braking. "Where are we going?" she asks as they pull away from the hospital. "Somewhere safe." That's not an answer. Vincent appreciates her directness. Elena refuses to pretend their arrangement is anything other than what it is. A safe house. Neutral territory. Until we figure out our next move. The safe house sits in an affluent suburb where Vincent's neighbors include senators and federal judges. A beautiful irony that the most wanted man in the city hides among those sworn to bring him to justice. The house itself is modest by Vincent's standards. 4 bedrooms, a kitchen that smells like the family that lived here before witness protection relocated them, and windows that offer clear sightlines in every direction. Elena walks through the space with the careful attention of someone cataloging escape routes. She pauses at the kitchen window, looking out at the manicured lawn and white picket fence. "Whose life are we borrowing?" she asks. "A accountant who kept better books than he should have." Vincent joins her at the window. "They're safe now. New identities. New coast. Because you moved them. Because I needed this house." Elena nods. No judgment in her expression. Just acceptance of the moral mathematics that governs Vincent's world. Lives rearranged like furniture to accommodate his needs. She understands that her safety costs other people their sense of home. "What happens now?" she asks. Vincent has been dreading this conversation. "Now you learn to be someone else." Meaning, new identity, background that stands up to scrutiny, skills that make you useful instead of vulnerable. He pauses. "And you learn how my world works. The rules. The players. The prices." Elena turns from the window to face him. "You're going to turn me into one of you." The statement hangs between them without accusation or fear. Just recognition of the inevitable transformation that comes with survival in Vincent's orbit. Elena sees the choice clearly. Become part of his world or remain forever dependent on his protection. Only if you want to survive it. Elena considers this. "What if I don't want to become someone else? What if I want to stay me? Then you'll die as yourself instead of living as someone new." The brutal honesty of his answer doesn't surprise her. Elena has learned that Vincent doesn't traffic in comforting lies. His world operates on truth so sharp it cuts everything it touches. "Show me," she says. Vincent spends the next 3 hours explaining the architecture of his empire. Territory maps spread across the kitchen table like military campaigns. Photographs of allies and enemies arranged in careful hierarchies. Financial records that trace money through legitimate businesses into the black market economy that really runs the city. Elena absorbs information with the focused intensity of someone studying for a final exam and staying alive. She asks precise questions about power structures, revenue streams, and the delicate balance of relationships that keeps Vincent's organization functioning. "The Castellanos," she says, pointing to a cluster of photographs. "They're the ones who had me beaten." "Probably. They've been testing boundaries for months." "What's their weakness?" Vincent looks at her sharply. "Why?" "Because you're going to move against them anyway. I want to understand how." Elena's transformation has already begun. 3 hours of education and she's thinking strategically instead of just surviving. Vincent recognizes the shift because he's seen it before. In his own mirror 20 years ago when innocence died and calculation was born. Their youngest son, Marcus. He's been skimming from family operations to feed a gambling addiction. They don't know yet. "How do you know?" "Because I own the games he plays." Elena nods. Information as currency. Weakness as opportunity. The fundamental economics of power in Vincent's world. "What's the play?" Vincent studies her face, looking for signs of moral hesitation or emotional resistance. He finds neither. Elena is learning to think like him with disturbing ease. Marcus owes more than he can pay. We collect the debt publicly. His family learns about his betrayal when we expose him as a liability. Internal conflict weakens their organization while we maintain plausible deniability. And Marcus becomes our asset or disappears. His choice. Elena processes this scenario without visible reaction. How long before they realize you orchestrated his exposure? Does it matter? By then they're dealing with internal bleeding instead of planning external attacks. "What about the men who hurt me?" Vincent's expression hardens. "That's already handled." Elena doesn't ask for details. Some questions carry answers she's not ready to hear. But she understands that justice in Vincent's world comes with different rules than the legal system she grew up believing in. When do we start? She asks. We already have. Elena spends the following weeks learning skills she never imagined needing. Giuseppe teaches her to handle weapons with the same care she once gave to salvaging food from garbage. Vincent's accountant explains money laundering through lectures that feel like advanced mathematics courses in moral flexibility. A former federal prosecutor, now permanently retained by Vincent's organization, provides tutorials in legal terminology and procedure. Each lesson chips away at the person Elena used to be. She learns to think in terms of leverage instead of justice, to see relationships as transactions instead of connections, to evaluate every situation for advantages and vulnerabilities instead of right and wrong. Vincent watches her transformation with equal measures of pride and regret. Elena is becoming everything she needs to be to survive in his world. But each new skill she acquires costs her something irreplaceable from the woman he found eating garbage behind a forgotten grocery store. Do you miss it? He asks one evening, as they review territory maps. Miss what? Being innocent. Elena looks up from the photograph spread before her. I was never innocent. I was just ignorant. She pauses. Ignorance doesn't protect you from bullets. Vincent recognizes the truth in her words but mourns something indefinable in her answer. Elena is becoming powerful, knowledgeable, capable of protecting herself in ways that transcend his ability to shelter her. But she's also becoming harder, more calculating, less surprised by the casual cruelty that defines their existence. Are you happy? He asks. Elena considers the question seriously. I'm alive. That's more than I had 6 weeks ago. That's not what I asked. It's the only answer that matters. Vincent nods, but something cold settles in his chest. Elena is learning his lessons too well. The emotional distance that protects him from the weight of his choices is becoming hers. She's surviving by adopting the same calculated detachment that has kept him alive for 20 years. The woman who touched his arm in the hospital, who saw through his professional facade to something more human underneath, is disappearing into the person he's teaching her to become. Vincent is saving Elena's life by destroying everything that made her worth saving. 4 months after Elena disappeared from the hospital, she no longer exists. In her place stands Isabella Romano, Vincent's newest associate with impeccable credentials and a background that survives federal investigation. The transformation is complete. Physical therapy erased the limp from her broken bones. Speech coaching removed the hesitation from her voice. Expensive clothes replaced the desperate hunger in her eyes with calculated confidence. Vincent watches Isabella move through his penthouse office like she belongs there. She reviews territory reports with the same attention she once gave to moldy sandwiches. Her handwriting fills margins with observations that cut through pretense to expose weakness and opportunity. She's become everything he taught her to be, everything he needs her to be, everything he never wanted her to become. The Castellano situation is resolved, Isabella reports without looking up from the files. Marcus took the deal. He's feeding us information about his family's operations in exchange for debt forgiveness and protection. Vincent nods but doesn't feel the satisfaction he expected. Victory tastes different when achieved through someone else's corruption. And his family? They'll discover his betrayal within a week. Our timeline for moving on their territory remains intact. Isabella's voice carries no emotion, no moral weight. She discusses destroying a family's criminal enterprise with the same detachment Vincent brings to reviewing quarterly profits. The similarity should please him. Instead, it feels like looking into a mirror that reflects everything wrong with his choices. Good work, he says. Isabella finally looks up. Is there something else? Vincent studies her face, searching for traces of the woman who ate garbage with dignity, who touched his arm in a hospital bed, who saw through his defenses to something worth protecting. He finds nothing. Isabella's expression reveals only professional competence and careful distance. No, nothing else. Isabella returns to her reports. Vincent turns to the window overlooking his city. 23 floors below, people move through lives that don't require them to become different people to survive. They wake up as themselves, go to sleep as themselves, navigate existence without abandoning their essential nature for the mathematics of staying alive. Vincent envies them more than he's ever envied anyone. The intercom buzzes. Giuseppe's voice carries urgency that cuts through Vincent's dark thoughts. Boss, we have a problem. Federal task force is moving on the waterfront operations. They have Marcus. Vincent processes this information with automatic calculation. Marcus was their asset for less than a week. Either the Castellanos discovered his betrayal faster than expected, or the federal investigation goes deeper than their intelligence suggested. Both possibilities carry implications that threaten the careful balance Vincent has maintained for 20 years. How much does Marcus know? Isabella asks. She's already calculating exposure, identifying vulnerabilities, thinking 3 moves ahead. Enough to hurt us, Vincent admits. Isabella closes the files and stands. Then we cut our losses and eliminate the liability. The words hit Vincent like ice water. Eliminate the liability. The same language he's used 1,000 times to authorize permanent solutions to temporary problems. But hearing it from Isabella's lips feels like listening to his own voice echo back from a place too dark to see clearly. Marcus has children, he says. Marcus made choices that endangered those children when he betrayed his family for gambling debts. Isabella's logic is flawless. His survival threatens our organization. The mathematics are simple. Vincent recognizes his own teachings in her reasoning. Calculated decisions based on risk assessment rather than emotional attachment. The survival philosophy that has kept him alive in a world where sentiment equals death. But something about Isabella's casual dismissal of Marcus's humanity disturbs him in ways he can't articulate. There might be another way, he says. Isabella tilts her head slightly. Such as? Vincent doesn't have an answer. For the first time in 20 years, his instinct for strategic thinking feels clouded by something that resembles conscience. The part of him that brought food to a starving woman rebels against the part that solves problems through elimination. I need time to think. Time is the one thing we don't have, Isabella points out. Every hour Marcus remains in federal custody increases the probability of catastrophic exposure. She's right. Vincent knows she's right. The logical response is immediate action, permanent solution, clean elimination of a threat that could destroy everything he's built. But looking at Isabella's emotionless efficiency, he realizes he's created something that frightens him more than federal investigation. What happened to you? He asks. The question surprises them both. Isabella's professional mask slips for exactly 1 second, revealing something raw underneath. Then it snaps back into place with practiced precision. You taught me to survive. I taught you to think strategically. Same thing in your world. Vincent feels the weight of that truth settle around him like concrete. His world doesn't distinguish between survival and moral compromise. Every lesson he taught Isabella came with the implicit understanding that feeling too much gets you killed, that caring about the wrong people destroys everything you've worked to protect. Do you remember the woman who ate garbage behind Marco's grocery? He asks. Isabella's expression doesn't change. That woman was weak, vulnerable, a victim waiting for someone stronger to define her fate. That woman had something I'd forgotten existed. What? Vincent struggles to name it. Hope. Real hope. Not the calculated optimism of strategic planning, but actual belief that people could be better than their circumstances force them to become. Isabella studies his face with clinical interest. And you think that hope made her stronger? I think it made her human. Humanity is a luxury people in our position can't afford. Vincent recognizes his own words spoken back to him with perfect accuracy. Isabella has learned his lessons too well. She's become the ideal student of a curriculum that destroys everything it claims to protect. The phone rings. Giuseppe's voice crackles through the speaker with news that changes everything. Boss Marcus is dead. Apparent suicide in his cell. Federal investigation loses its primary witness. Vincent and Isabella exchange glances. Suicide. The most convenient kind of death for everyone except the person who dies. Vincent's organization survives another threat. The Castellano family loses a liability they didn't know they had. The federal task force returns to square one without their key witness. Everyone wins except Marcus. Problem solved, Isabella says with satisfaction. Vincent stares at her. Problem solved. 2 words that summarize the efficient brutality of the world he's created. A world where inconvenient people disappear before they can become dangerous. Where survival justifies any action. Where the strong define morality through the simple mathematics of who lives and who doesn't. Yes, he says quietly. Problem solved. Isabella returns to her reports as if nothing significant has occurred. Death as administrative detail. Human life reduced to risk assessment. Vincent watches her work and realizes he's looking at his own reflection 20 years ago. when Maria's death taught him that caring too much destroys everything you try to protect. But now he wonders if protecting everything requires destroying the reasons protection matters in the first place. That night, Vincent drives alone through the industrial district where he first found Elena. The alley behind Marco's grocery looks exactly the same. Garbage scattered across broken asphalt. Shadows that hide the desperate and forgotten. The geography of urban decay that breeds the kind of desperation that drove a young woman to eat scraps like salvation. Vincent parks in the same spot and walks to the same corner where Elena knelt among the refuse. He stands there for a long time, remembering the dignity she maintained even in degradation, the way she looked at him without fear or calculation, the touch of her hand on his arm that felt like absolution for crimes he thought were unforgivable. Elena is gone. Isabella remains. Vincent saved her life by teaching her to become someone else entirely, someone harder, more calculating, better equipped to survive in his world of controlled violence and moral compromise. Someone exactly like him. Vincent returns to his penthouse where Isabella works late into the night, planning the next phase of their expansion into Castellano territory. She's become everything he taught her to be. Everything his world required her to become. Everything he wishes she hadn't needed to become. The city spreads below them like a circuit board of lights and shadows. Each light represents lives that continue because Vincent allows them to continue. Each shadow hides the cost of that permission. It's a beautiful view from 23 floors above the suffering. Beautiful and completely hollow. In saving Elena, Vincent realizes he may have destroyed the only thing about her worth saving. Her ability to see him as something more than the sum of his choices. Her belief that people could be better than their circumstances forced them to become. The woman who touched his arm and called it recognition is gone forever. In her place stands Isabella Romano, perfect in her efficiency and terrible in her competence. She'll survive anything his world throws at her. But survival, Vincent finally understands, isn't the same thing as living. The silence between them feels like the space between heartbeats when everything hangs in balance. And Vincent wonders if this is what victory looks like when you win by becoming everything you once fought against. I hope this psychological thriller journey through Vincent and Elena's transformation has left you questioning the true cost of survival. What price would you pay to protect someone you care about? At what point does saving someone become destroying them? These moral shadows follow us long after the story ends, don't they? If this exploration of power, protection, and the corruption of good intentions resonated with you, I'd love to have you join our community here. Subscribe not just for more stories like this, but to be part of conversations that dig deeper than surface-level entertainment. What questions is this story leaving you with? What would you have done in Vincent's position? Let Elena remain vulnerable but authentic, or teach her to survive by becoming someone else entirely? Share your thoughts below, because the most haunting stories are the ones that force us to examine our own moral boundaries.